My name is Jack Lawson. I'm 28 years old, and today I'm going to share my story, a truth that few have dared to tell about choosing the freedom of the open range over the tight expectations of my family. I grew up under the heavy shadow of the Parker family ranch, a legacy of traditions pushing me toward a predetermined path. But my heart always beat differently. It beat for the vast, untamed open land. Have you ever felt that inner voice calling you toward something bigger, something beyond the life already planned for you? For me, that call came one sunny morning, when the endless horizon of the road revealed the promise of true freedom, a life without chains, made of dust, solitude, and the deep silence of the wild. But walking that path came at a cost. The fight with my own blood, the fear, and the near brush with death were all part of the price. Is it worth breaking away from everything imposed on us to seek our own truth? Have you ever found yourself at such a moment, forced to choose between safe comfort and the unknown that fascinates? Stay with me and discover what it really means to be a free cowboy, because this is my truth. Since I was a kid, I felt the weight of my family's expectations. The Parker Ranch wasn't just land, it was an inheritance, a legacy passed down through generations. Everyone expected me to follow in my father's and grandfather's footsteps, to work the soil, tend the cattle, and keep the tradition alive. But to me, it felt like an invisible prison, a trap that stole my desire to explore beyond the fences and the set routines. My days were filled with orders, advice, and hopeful but demanding looks. "Jack, the future of the ranch depends on you," they said. And I listened, tried to obey, but I felt a growing restlessness inside me. It was as if my heart beat out of sync with those expectations, calling for something freer, wilder. That pressure made my chest ache, and I knew I couldn't deny that call forever. At night, when everything fell silent, I looked up at the stars and imagined what life beyond those limits would be like. The spirit of a cowboy, free and unbound, was an idea that fascinated and terrified me at the same time. I saw other boys planning their lives on the ranch, and I just wanted the open horizon, to feel the wind on my face and hear the sounds of nature all around. Something inside me told me I didn't belong there even though it was my home. But how do you tell a family that lives and breathes that land? How do you explain that my dream wasn't to inherit the ranch, but to hit the road, where life is uncertain, harsh, and full of challenges? The truth was, tradition was etched into every corner of that property, and breaking away meant not just leaving the ranch, but breaking free from everything that held me, security, comfort, and family love. It was a heavy decision for a young man like me, and yet that longing grew, becoming almost a vital need. I felt that to truly be myself, I had to escape the invisible chains of expectation and find my own way. The Parker Ranch taught me a lot, but it also showed me what I didn't want for my life. So, as the days passed, the dream of open land and freedom became a flame that couldn't be extinguished. As beautiful and full of stories as the ranch was, I knew I couldn't stay trapped in the past. I felt the urgency to answer the call of freedom, even if it meant facing my family's disapproval and pain. That inner struggle between love and desire prepared me for what was coming next, the moment when the unknown became irresistible. But what exactly happened to turn that restlessness into a decision that would change my life forever? The answer lies in that day, out in the open field, when everything changed for me. There was a day I'll never forget, the day the wide open land called to me louder than ever before. I was out by the far edge of the Parker Ranch watching the sun spill golden light across the fields. The wind carried the scent of sagebrush and fresh earth, and in that moment, something inside me stirred awake. It was as if the vast prairie whispered secrets meant only for me, pulling me toward a life beyond fences and expectations. I remember seeing a lone hawk circling high above, effortlessly riding the wind currents, free to roam wherever it pleased. That bird became a symbol of everything I longed for, freedom without limits. It wasn't just a feeling, it was a hunger burning deep in my chest, begging me to break away and chase the unknown. The safety of the ranch suddenly felt like a cage, and the call of the wild was impossible to ignore. That day, I realized the path I was meant to take wasn't lined with the comfort of familiarity. Instead, it stretched out as a dusty, uncertain road filled with challenges, but also endless possibilities. The open range promised freedom but demanded courage, something I wasn't sure I fully had yet. Still, the pull was undeniable, and I knew I couldn't turn back from that moment on. What made this call so powerful wasn't just the desire for adventure. It was a need to find myself outside of what everyone expected, to live honestly, without pretending to be someone I wasn't. Every moment on that ranch had shaped me, but I also knew it couldn't contain the man I was becoming. The unknown called me to risk everything for a chance at a life truly my own. Looking back, I understand why the call was irresistible. It was the sound of my soul breaking free from chains I hadn't realized I was wearing. That day planted a seed of rebellion and hope, a seed that would grow into a decision that shook my whole world. But before I took that step, I had to face the hardest fight of all, one that tore through my family and my heart. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. The battle for freedom meant confronting those I loved most, and it meant risking everything for a chance at a life on my own terms. The question was I ready to pay that price? The tension had been building for weeks, simmering beneath the surface like a storm waiting to explode. One evening after a long day on the ranch, my father and I finally faced each other in the old living room. His eyes were hard, filled with disappointment and worry. Mine burned with frustration and determination. What started as a simple conversation quickly spiraled into a heated argument that neither of us could back down from. He wanted me to stay, to follow the path laid out for me, to take over the ranch, keep the family legacy alive. But I couldn't hide the truth anymore. My heart belonged to the open range, not the fenced fields of Parker Ranch. His words cut deep, full of pain and disbelief. "You're throwing away your future," he said, voice shaking. I stood my ground, refusing to be chained to a life that wasn't mine. The fight grew louder, the air thick with anger and hurt. My older brother tried to intervene, but the cracks in our family were too wide. Doors slammed, voices echoed through the halls, and promises were broken in the heat of the moment. I felt like I was being torn apart, caught between loyalty and freedom, love and my own truth. It was the hardest battle I ever fought, not with strangers, but with my own blood. In that storm of emotions, I knew there was no going back. The ties that had once bound me to the ranch were unraveling, and with every word exchanged, the distance between us grew. I could almost hear the silence that awaited after the dust settled. A silence filled with regret and unspoken pain. But it was a silence I had to face if I was ever going to find peace. That night, as I packed my few belongings, the weight of what I was leaving behind pressed on me. But even heavier was the weight of what lay ahead. The unknown, the lonely road that called my name. I was stepping into a world where survival meant more than blood ties. It meant strength, resilience, and courage like I'd never known. Leaving wasn't just about escaping a life I didn't want. It was about claiming the freedom I craved. And that choice, painful as it was, set me on a path that would change everything. But little did I know the challenges awaiting me on the road. Challenges that would test me in ways I could never imagine. What came next was a journey of solitude and survival, where every step taught me something new about who I was. But before I dive into those early days on the trail, do you want me to continue? The moment I left the ranch, the world around me changed completely. The familiar sounds of home, the creak of the barn door, the chatter of family, were replaced by the endless whisper of the wind through the tall grass and the crunch of dry earth beneath my boots. Those first days out on the trail were tough. The silence was deep and sometimes deafening, and the loneliness settled in like a heavy cloak. Sleeping under the stars wasn't as romantic as I once imagined. The cold nights bit into my skin, and the endless sky sometimes made me feel small and lost. I learned to listen for the sounds of coyotes howling in the distance and the snap of twigs nearby. Every noise kept me alert, reminding me that out here, I was alone, completely exposed to the raw forces of nature and my own fears. My hands grew rough from learning the hard work of the road, breaking horses, mending fences, and surviving without the safety net of my family's land. I was filled with doubts and regrets in the quiet moments, wondering if I had made the right choice. The ache of missing home mixed with the pain of my own stubborn pride, making the loneliness even harder to bear. But with each sunrise, I grew stronger. I learned to trust my instincts and find comfort in the simplicity of the open range. The dust that covered my boots became a badge of honor, proof that I was living my truth. Even the silence started to feel like a friend, a space where I could hear my own heartbeat and finally understand who I really was. The lessons of those early days shaped me more than I could have imagined. The road was unforgiving, but it taught me resilience and patience. It was a harsh teacher, but a necessary one. And as I faced every new challenge, I knew that the life I'd chosen wasn't for the faint of heart. It was for those willing to endure and grow. Still, nothing prepared me for the moment when the danger became all too real. One day, the road almost cost me my life. But before I tell you about that close call, there's more to the story, more struggles and lessons learned under that endless sky. Out on the open range, danger is never far behind, and I learned that lesson the hard way. It happened one afternoon when I was trying to break a wild horse, a creature as fierce and unpredictable as the land itself. That horse wasn't just untamed, it was a force of nature, full of power and wild spirit. I thought I could handle it, but that day, I faced death eye to eye. The horse reared up suddenly, throwing me off balance. I stumbled backward, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. Before I could react, the horse's hooves came crashing down dangerously close, and in the chaos I felt a sharp pain as a shot rang out. Someone had fired to protect me or the horse. I never really knew. Blood rushed to my face as I fell to the ground, the world spinning around me. Lying there with the prairie stretching out under the wide sky, I faced my own mortality. The silence after the chaos was deafening, filled with the weight of what could have been my last moments. I thought about everything I had left behind, the family, the farm, the expectations I had fought so hard to escape. Was it all worth it? Was this freedom I craved worth the price? But as the pain settled and I slowly regained my strength, something inside me shifted. That near-death experience wasn't just a warning, it was a test. It told me I was on the right path, even if that path was lined with danger and uncertainty. It forced me to dig deeper, to find a resilience I didn't know I had. In those days following the incident, every step on the trail felt heavier, but also more meaningful. I realized that freedom wasn't free. It demanded sacrifice and courage. And while the wild could take a lot, it also gave back something powerful. The knowledge that I was alive, truly alive, chasing a life on my own terms. But I wasn't alone on this journey. Along the dusty trails and under the endless skies, I met others who, like me, chose the road less traveled. Men who lived by their own rules and whose stories would leave a mark on my own. Riding through the endless plains, I soon discovered I wasn't the only one drawn to the wild and unpredictable life of the open range. Along the dusty trails, I met men who carried the same restless spirit, a mix of cowboys, old gunslingers, and quiet wanderers. Each of them had stories etched into their weathered faces, lessons learned the hard way, and a freedom that couldn't be bought or sold. There was Sam, an old pistolier with a calm gaze and hands steady from years of surviving gunfights. He taught me the importance of patience and reading the land, showing me that a true cowboy isn't just fast with a gun, but wise in his decisions. His stories were like echoes of a past I hadn't lived but now deeply respected, and his quiet confidence rubbed off on me. Then came a group of cowboys who rode like the wind, men who knew the trails like the back of their hands and whose laughter could fill a campfire night. They welcomed me with nods and shared tales of cattle drives, narrow escapes, and friendships forged in the dust. With them, I learned the value of brotherhood on the road, a bond stronger than blood, held together by trust and shared hardship. There were also the silent wanderers, men who spoke little but carried a weight of secrets and pain. Their presence was a reminder that the cowboy life wasn't all freedom and adventure. It came with loneliness and ghosts from the past. Their quiet strength showed me that sometimes survival meant carrying your burdens alone but never giving up. Each encounter added a new layer to my journey. These brothers of the road became teachers, friends, and sometimes warnings. They helped shape the man I was becoming, someone who valued freedom but understood the price it demanded. In their stories, I found pieces of my own truth, and in their company, a sense of belonging I hadn't expected. Yet, even among these men, there was a part of me that longed for something else: connection, forgiveness, and the ties I'd left behind. That longing found its way into a letter I wrote but never sent, a secret kept between my heart and the endless sky. In the quiet moments by the campfire, as the stars stretched across the sky, I found myself reaching for a piece of paper and a pen. I wrote a letter to my family, to the ones I left behind on the Parker Ranch. Words poured out of me, a mix of regret, love, and the truth I never dared to say out loud. It was a letter filled with longing, apologies, and the hope that someday they might understand why I chose this road. But the letter was never sent. Pride wrapped itself around my heart like a shield, making it impossible to send those vulnerable words. I was torn between the desire to reconnect and the fear of rejection. The silence between me and my family felt safer than the risk of reopening old wounds. So, that letter stayed folded in my pocket, a secret between me and the vast, lonely prairie. Every day on the trail, the ache of missing home mixed with the stubbornness that had pushed me away. I wondered if they thought I'd forgotten them, or if they blamed me for walking away. That unspoken distance was like a shadow that followed me, a reminder that freedom sometimes comes with a heavy price, a price paid in silence and missed chances. Still, writing that letter helped me face my own feelings. It was a way to speak to the part of me that still loved the ranch and the family who shaped me. Even as I rode farther from the past, a part of me held on to those roots, struggling to find peace between where I came from and where I was going. That letter, unsent but deeply felt, became a symbol of the complex dance between love and pride, connection and independence. It showed me that some battles are fought not with fists or words, but within our own hearts. And while I didn't send it, the act of writing gave me strength for what lay ahead. Because soon I would face a choice more profound than any before. A choice between returning to the family I loved and continuing the endless ride toward a horizon that promised freedom but demanded sacrifice. After months on the trail, the thought of returning home crept into my mind more often than I cared to admit. The ranch, the family dinners, the familiar voices, all called to me like a distant melody. There was a part of me that longed for reconciliation, to mend the broken ties and find peace in the warmth of those I left behind. But the other part, wild and restless, yearned for the open range, the vast unknown stretching endlessly before me. The day came when I stood at a crossroads, quite literally, with the sun setting behind me and a letter in my hand. It was a chance to return, to heal wounds and settle the past. But as I looked toward the endless horizon, feeling the wind on my face and the dust beneath my boots, I realized that my journey wasn't just about distance. It was about who I had become. Going back meant stepping into a life that no longer fit me. I thought about the fights, the silences, the nights spent under stars instead of roofs. I thought about the freedom I had tasted, the quiet strength of solitude, and the unbreakable bond with the land. Choosing to keep riding meant embracing uncertainty, danger, and loneliness. But it also meant living authentically, on my own terms, free from the chains of expectation. In that moment, I made my choice. I folded the letter and tucked it away once more. The road was my home now, the open range my family. It wasn't an easy decision. It came with the sting of loss and the weight of sacrifice. But it was mine, pure and unfiltered. The horizon stretched out endlessly, a promise of more stories, more struggles, and more freedom. And though I knew the path ahead would test me in ways I couldn't yet imagine, I was ready. Because being a cowboy wasn't just a way of life, it was a calling, and I had answered it fully. As the sun dipped below the plains, I took one last look back, then faced forward, riding into the unknown, into the endless freedom that had always been waiting for me. Thank you for sticking around and listening to my story. If you enjoyed this journey through the world of cowboys, and want to keep hearing more tales full of adventure, courage, and freedom, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Leave a like to show your support and help us bring even more stories that speak straight to the heart. Your support means the world, and helps me keep sharing these true experiences from life on the trail. See you next time, partner.